Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. Here, we explore the fascinating world of science, from the mysteries of the universe to the wonders of everyday life. Sit back, relax, and let's discover something amazing together. Ancient Egypt is often remembered as one of the most remarkable civilizations in human history, and as you begin to explore it, you may find yourself slowly drawn into a world that feels both distant and quietly familiar. Imagine standing at the edge of time, looking back thousands of years to a place where life unfolded along the banks of a great river. This was not only a land of pyramids and kings, but a living society shaped by nature, belief, and daily routines. What makes ancient Egypt so fascinating is not just its age, but its endurance. While many early civilizations rose and disappeared, Egypt continued to thrive for thousands of years. Its people built monuments that still stand today, created systems of writing, and developed knowledge that would influence future generations. There is something quietly powerful about a civilization that could last so long while achieving so much. You might begin to wonder what made this possible. Was it the towering pyramids that still inspire or the mysterious rituals surrounding death and the afterlife? Perhaps it was the way society was carefully organized, allowing large groups of people to work together on massive projects. In truth, it was a combination of all these elements, woven together into a stable and balanced way of life. One of the most important factors behind Egypt's success was its geography. The civilization developed along the Nile River, which provided water in an otherwise dry landscape. Each year, the river flooded, leaving behind fertile soil that made farming possible. This natural cycle created a steady rhythm for life, guiding agriculture, work, and even religious beliefs. Without the Nile, ancient Egypt might never have become such a powerful civilization. At the center of Egyptian society was a strong belief in order and balance, often referred to as Ma'at. This idea influenced everything from laws and leadership to personal behavior. People believed that maintaining harmony in the world was essential, and this belief helped create a stable society. Even the pharaoh, who was both a ruler and a sacred figure, was expected to uphold this balance. Despite the grand images often associated with ancient Egypt, most people lived simple lives. They built homes from mud bricks, ate basic foods like bread and vegetables, and worked as farmers, craftsmen, or laborious. Their days were shaped by routine, but also filled with small moments, sharing meals, telling stories, or participating in local traditions. These everyday experiences formed the true foundation of the civilization. As you continue exploring, you will discover that religion played a central role in Egyptian life. People believed in many gods, each connected to natural forces like the sun, the sky, and the river. They also believed strongly in life after death, which influenced how they lived and how they prepared for burial. These beliefs gave meaning to both life and death, creating a sense of continuity beyond the present. You will also encounter the impressive achievements of ancient Egypt in areas like architecture, science, and writing. Their understanding of mathematics allowed them to build massive structures with surprising precision. Their medical knowledge showed an early understanding of the human body. And their system of writing, known as hieroglyphs, helped preserve their history and ideas. At the same time, there is still a sense of mystery surrounding this civilization. Historians and archaeologists have uncovered many details, but some aspects remain unclear. Certain rituals, beliefs, and construction methods are still being studied today. This balance between what we know and what remains unknown adds to the lasting curiosity about ancient Egypt. The purpose of this presentation is not only to share information, but also to guide you through an experience. Instead of simply learning facts, you are invited to imagine yourself within this world, walking through a village, feeling the warmth of the sun, and observing the rhythm of daily life. By doing so, you may begin to understand not just how ancient Egypt functioned, but how it felt to live there. Throughout this journey, you will explore different aspects of Egyptian civilization, from social structure and daily life to religion, science, and culture. Each part will help you build a clearer picture of how this society worked as a whole. You will see how different elements connected, creating a civilization that was both complex and enduring. By the end, ancient Egypt may no longer feel like a distant chapter in history, but a vivid part of the human story. It reminds us that even in ancient times, people were capable of creativity, organization, and deep belief. And perhaps, as you reflect on this, one quiet question will remain. What can we learn today from a civilization that understood so well how to live in balance with the world around it? As you move gently beyond the introduction, you begin to see ancient Egypt not just as a distant idea, but as a real place shaped by land, water, and human organization. If you imagine yourself standing there, the first thing you would likely notice is the landscape. On either side, vast stretches of dry desert extend outward, quiet and still. And cutting through this dryness, like a long, steady lifeline, flows the Nile River. The Nile was not simply a river, it was the heart of the entire civilization. Without it, life here would have been nearly impossible. Each year, the river flooded its banks in a predictable cycle, leaving behind a layer of rich, dark soil. This soil made farming possible in an otherwise harsh environment. You could think of it as a natural gift that arrived on time, every year, quietly supporting millions of lives. Because of this, most settlements were built along the Nile. If you were to walk through an ancient village, you would notice how everything seemed connected to the river. Farmers worked in nearby fields, using simple tools to grow crops like wheat and barley. Boats moved slowly along the water, carrying goods, people, and messages between different regions. The river was not only a source of food, but also the main route for transportation. This geography shaped the way society developed. Unlike many other early civilizations that faced frequent invasions, Egypt was naturally protected by deserts and seas. This isolation allowed it to grow steadily, with fewer external disruptions. Over time, a strong and stable system of government emerged, centered around a single powerful figure, the pharaoh. The pharaoh was more than just a king. You would see him as both a political leader and a religious symbol. Egyptians believed that the pharaoh was chosen by the gods, or even a god in human form. His role was to maintain order, ensure prosperity, and protect the land. This idea helped unify the people, creating a shared sense of purpose and loyalty. Below the pharaoh, society was carefully structured. At the top were nobles and priests, who held positions of power and influence. Priests were especially important because religion played such a central role in daily life. They performed rituals, cared for temples, and acted as intermediaries between the people and the gods. Next came scribes, individuals trained in reading and writing. In a world where most people could not write, scribes held a unique and respected position. They recorded important information, taxes, laws, trade, and history. If you imagine a scribe at work, you might see him sitting quietly with a reed pen, carefully writing symbols onto papyrus, preserving moments that would otherwise be forgotten. Below them were craftsmen, farmers, and laborers, the majority of the population. These were the people who built houses, made tools, grew food, and supported the entire system. Their lives were often simple, but essential. Without their work, the grand structures and organized society of Egypt could not have existed. At the bottom were slaves, though their role in Egyptian society was somewhat different from what you might expect in later histories. Some were prisoners of war, while others worked in households or on construction projects. However, many large building efforts, including pyramids, were actually carried out by paid laborers rather than slaves, a detail that often surprises people. As you observe this structure, you may notice how everything seems to fit together in a balanced way. Each group had a role, and each role contributed to the stability of the whole. This reflects the Egyptian belief in order and harmony, a guiding principle that influenced both society and personal behavior. There is also a quiet rhythm to life here, shaped by the cycles of the Nile. The year was divided into seasons based on the river's behavior: flooding, planting, and harvesting. During the flood season, when fields were covered with water, many farmers worked on building projects instead. This allowed the society to use time efficiently, turning natural limitations into opportunities. One interesting detail is how organized labor could become during these times. Workers were often grouped, given food rations, and managed in teams. You might even imagine a group of laborers sharing bread and beer after a long day, resting together as the sun slowly fades. It was not an easy life, but it was structured and, in many ways, cooperative. As you continue to explore this world, it becomes clear that ancient Egypt was not just about impressive monuments. It was a carefully balanced system where geography, leadership, and social roles all worked together. The Nile provided life, the pharaoh provided order, and the people provided the effort that kept everything moving. And yet, even within this structure, there are small human stories waiting to be noticed. Quiet moments of work, rest, and connection that bring this civilization to life in a more personal way. In the next chapter, you will step closer into those daily experiences, exploring what it truly felt like to live as an ordinary person in ancient Egypt, from the homes they built to the food they ate, and the simple routines that shaped their days. As you step more deeply into the world of ancient Egypt, the grand images of pyramids and pharaohs begin to fade slightly, making room for something quieter and more human. You begin to notice the details of everyday life, the small routines and simple habits that shape the experience of ordinary people. Imagine waking up in a modest home built from mud bricks, the walls thick enough to keep out some of the heat. The air inside feels still, carrying a faint earthy scent. These homes were practical rather than decorative, designed to provide shelter in a hot and dry climate. Most houses had flat roofs, which were sometimes used as sleeping areas during warm nights, where a gentle breeze could offer a bit of relief. Furniture was minimal. You might find a low wooden stool, a simple bed made of woven reeds, and a few clay containers for storing food or water. Life was not filled with many possessions, but rather with function. Everything had a purpose, and nothing was wasted. As the day begins, food becomes an important part of your routine. The typical diet in ancient Egypt was simple but surprisingly stable. Bread was the main staple, made from wheat or barley. You might imagine the process: grain being ground into flour, mixed with water, and baked into flat loaves. Alongside bread, people often drank beer, which was not only common but also safer than untreated water in many cases. Vegetables such as onions, garlic, and lentils were also part of daily meals. Occasionally, those who could afford it might eat fish or meat, but for most people, these were not everyday foods. Still, meals were shared, and even simple food could bring a sense of comfort and community. Clothing in ancient Egypt reflected both the climate and social status. Because of the heat, people wore light, loose garments made from linen. You might picture a simple white tunic, soft and breathable, allowing air to move freely. Wealthier individuals wore finer fabrics and sometimes added jewelry, but overall, clothing remained practical and suited to the environment. Hygiene and appearance were also important. People bathed regularly, using water from the Nile, and applied oils to protect their skin from the dry air. Both men and women used cosmetics, especially eye makeup, which was believed to have protective and even medicinal qualities. It is a quiet reminder that even in ancient times, people cared about how they looked and felt. Work played a central role in daily life. Most people were farmers, and their routines followed the rhythm of the Nile. During the planting and harvesting seasons, days were long and physically demanding. You might imagine standing in a field, feeling the warm soil under your feet, carefully tending to crops that would sustain your family. Craftsmen, on the other hand, worked with their hands to create tools, pottery, textiles, and decorative items. Their work required skill and patience. A potter shaping clay on a simple wheel, or a weaver carefully threading fibers together. These were tasks that demanded focus and quiet dedication. Children also had their place in this world. While they often helped with household or farming tasks, they also found time to play. Simple games, toys made from wood or clay, and moments of laughter were part of growing up. Education was mainly reserved for those who would become scribes, but learning through observation and experience was common for everyone. There is something gently relatable in these daily patterns. Despite the distance in time, the rhythm of waking, working, eating, and resting feels familiar. It reminds you that, at their core, people in ancient Egypt were not so different from people today. One small but interesting detail is how beer was consumed daily, even by workers. It was often thick and nutritious, more like a liquid meal than a drink. In a way, you could say that a long day of labor was supported by what might have been the ancient version of a very practical energy drink, though perhaps not one you would find appealing today. As the day comes to an end, life begins to slow. The heat fades slightly, and families gather together. There may be conversations, shared meals, or quiet moments of rest. Without artificial lighting, nights were darker, guided only by the soft glow of oil lamps or the light of the moon. You might imagine lying down on a simple bed, listening to the distant sounds of the village settling into silence. The day has been long, but steady. There is a sense of routine, of continuity, of life moving forward in a predictable and reassuring way. Through these small details, ancient Egypt becomes more than just history. It becomes a place where people lived full lives, working, caring, resting, and finding meaning in their daily routines. And yet, beyond these everyday moments, there was something deeper shaping their world. A set of beliefs and spiritual ideas that influenced how they understood life, death, and everything in between. In the next chapter, you will explore these beliefs, stepping into the rich and complex world of Egyptian religion and discovering how it guided both the living and the dead. As you move quietly beyond the rhythms of daily life, you begin to sense that something deeper surrounds everything in ancient Egypt. It is not loud or overwhelming, but always present, woven gently into each action, each decision, each moment of existence. This is the world of belief, where religion is not separate from life, but part of its very foundation. If you imagine yourself standing in an ancient Egyptian village, you might notice small signs of this everywhere. A carved symbol near a doorway, a whispered prayer before a meal, a figure of a god placed carefully in a corner. These are not grand gestures, but quiet reminders that the unseen world is always close. The people of ancient Egypt believed in many gods, each representing different aspects of nature and life. You would come to know names like Ra, the sun god, whose daily journey across the sky symbolized life and renewal, or Osiris, associated with death and the afterlife, offering hope that life did not simply end. There was also Isis, a goddess of protection and care, and Anubis, who guided souls in the journey after death. Rather than distant or abstract, these gods felt present and active. The rising of the sun, the flooding of the Nile, even the changing of the seasons, all were seen as expressions of divine will. In this way, nature itself became a kind of language, quietly speaking to those who knew how to listen. You might begin to understand that religion was not only about worship, but also about maintaining balance. This idea, often known as Ma'at, was central to Egyptian belief. It represented order, truth, and harmony in the universe. To live well was to live in accordance with Ma'at, to act with fairness, respect, and responsibility. This belief influenced not only personal behavior but also the structure of society. The pharaoh, as both a ruler and a sacred figure, had the important role of maintaining this balance. If the pharaoh ruled justly, the land would prosper. If not, disorder could follow. In this way, leadership was deeply connected to spiritual responsibility. Temples played a key role in religious life. These were not just places for public gatherings, but sacred spaces where priests performed rituals to honor the gods. If you were to step inside a temple, you might notice the cool, dim atmosphere, the smell of incense in the air, and the quiet sense of reverence. Priests would make offerings, food, drink, or symbolic items, believing that these acts helped maintain the relationship between humans and the divine. Interestingly, most people did not enter the inner parts of temples. These areas were reserved for priests, who acted as intermediaries between the gods and the people. This created a kind of distance, but also a sense of trust, belief that the rituals were being carried out on behalf of everyone. One of the most powerful aspects of Egyptian belief was the idea of life after death. Unlike some cultures that saw death as an end, Egyptians viewed it as a transition. Life continued in another form, in a place often described as peaceful and abundant. However, reaching this afterlife required preparation. You might imagine that, even during life, people were quietly thinking about what would come after. Their actions, their behavior, even their thoughts were believed to influence their fate beyond death. At the moment of judgment, the heart of the deceased would be weighed against a feather, symbolizing truth. If the heart was light, free from wrongdoing, the soul could continue. If not, it faced a different, less hopeful fate. This belief gave meaning to both life and death. It encouraged people to act with care, not only for their present world but for what lay ahead. It also explains why burial practices became so important, something you will explore more deeply in the next chapter. There is also a quiet comfort in these beliefs. In a world where life could be uncertain, affected by nature, illness, or time, the idea of continuity offered reassurance. Death was not a sudden ending, but part of a larger journey. One small but interesting detail is how protective symbols were commonly used. Amulets, often worn as jewelry, were believed to guard against harm. These could take many forms: an eye, an animal, or a simple shape, each carrying its own meaning. You might imagine someone carefully placing an amulet around their neck before stepping outside, not out of fear, but as a gentle act of protection. As the day draws to a close, you might picture a family sitting together, the fading light casting soft shadows across the room. A quiet prayer is spoken, not loudly, but with calm intention. It is a moment that reflects something essential about ancient Egyptian belief. Not dramatic, but steady, present, and deeply rooted in everyday life. Through these beliefs, you begin to see how the Egyptians understood their place in the world. They were not separate from nature or the divine, but part of a larger balance that connected everything together. And yet, among all these ideas about life and harmony, there was one practice that stands out for its careful attention and mystery: the preparation for death itself. In the next chapter, you will step into the world of mummification and burial rituals, where the journey beyond life was prepared with remarkable detail and quiet devotion. As you move gently from the world of belief into the practices that followed, you begin to see how deeply the ancient Egyptians prepared for what came after life. Death, in their view, was not an end, but a transition, one that required care, patience, and a remarkable level of detail. If you imagine yourself standing near a burial site, there is a quiet sense of purpose in the air. Nothing here feels rushed. Every step, every action, is guided by tradition and belief. The goal is simple, yet profound: to preserve the body so that the soul can continue its journey in the afterlife. This is where mummification begins. The process itself was both careful and complex, often taking around 70 days to complete. You might picture skilled workers moving slowly and deliberately, following methods that had been refined over generations. The first step involved preparing the body, which meant removing internal organs. This was done not out of disrespect, but out of necessity, as these parts would decay quickly. Organs such as the lungs, liver, stomach, and intestines were carefully removed and placed into special containers known as canopic jars. Each jar was associated with a protective deity, offering spiritual safeguarding for what remained inside. Interestingly, the heart was usually left in the body, as it was believed to be the center of thought, emotion, and memory, essential for the judgment in the afterlife. The brain, however, was treated differently. It was often removed through the nose and discarded, as it was not considered important in the same way. From a modern perspective, this might seem surprising, but it reflects how differently the Egyptians understood the human body. Once the body was prepared, it was dried using a natural substance called natron, a type of salt. This stage required patience. The body would rest for many days, slowly losing moisture, until it became preserved. You might imagine the stillness of this moment, a quiet pause where time itself seems to slow. After drying, the body was carefully wrapped in layers of linen. This was not a simple task. Each layer was placed with attention, sometimes including small amulets between the folds. These amulets served as protection, guiding the deceased safely through the afterlife. The wrapping itself could take several days, almost like a final act of care. At the end of this process, the body became what we now call a mummy, preserved, protected, and prepared for its journey beyond the living world. But mummification was only part of the larger ritual. The burial itself was equally important. The Egyptians believed that the dead would need certain items in the afterlife, much like they did in life. Because of this, tombs were filled with objects: food, clothing, tools, and sometimes even furniture. For wealthier individuals, these items could be elaborate, reflecting their status and ensuring comfort beyond death. You might imagine stepping into a tomb, the walls covered with paintings and carvings. These images were not just decoration, they told stories, offered guidance, and sometimes even served as a kind of magical protection. Scenes of daily life, religious symbols, and written spells all work together to support the journey of the soul. For the most powerful figures, such as pharaohs, burial places were even more impressive. The pyramids, with their massive stone structures, were not just tombs, but symbols of power, belief, and continuity. Built with incredible precision, they still stand today as quiet witnesses to this ancient world. There is a gentle kind of logic behind all of this. If life continues after death, then preparation becomes an act of care. Every step of the process reflects a desire to protect, preserve, and guide. One small but interesting detail is that professional mourners were sometimes part of the burial ceremony. These individuals expressed grief openly, creating an atmosphere that honored the loss while also marking the importance of the moment. It may seem unusual, but it shows how deeply emotions and rituals were connected. At the same time, not everyone received the same level of burial. Wealth and status played a role in how elaborate the process could be. While pharaohs and nobles had grand tombs and detailed mummification, ordinary people often had simpler burials. Yet, even in simplicity, the core belief remained the same: the hope for continuation beyond death. As you reflect on this, you may notice how much effort was placed on preparing for something unseen. It speaks to a strong and steady faith, one that shaped not only rituals, but also the way people lived their lives. There is also a quiet sense of humanity in these practices. Beneath the layers of linen and ritual, there is a simple idea: the desire to be remembered, to be cared for, and to continue existing in some form. As the burial comes to an end, the tomb is sealed, and the outside world slowly returns to silence. Yet, in the minds of the Egyptians, this is not a final goodbye. It is the beginning of another journey. And as you step away from this quiet place, you begin to notice something else: how these beliefs and practices required not only faith, but also incredible skill and knowledge. In the next chapter, you will explore the architectural achievements of ancient Egypt, discovering how they built structures so large and precise that they continue to inspire wonder even today. As you step away from the quiet stillness of tombs and rituals, your attention is gently drawn upward, to structures that seem to rise beyond ordinary human effort. In ancient Egypt, architecture was not only about shelter or function, but also about belief, power, and a deep desire to create something lasting. If you imagine yourself approaching one of these monumental sites, the first feeling might be a quiet sense of scale. The structures are vast, steady, and carefully aligned, as if they were meant to stand not just for years, but for eternity. Among them, the most recognizable are the pyramids. The pyramids, especially those at Giza, are perhaps the most iconic symbols of ancient Egypt. Built as tombs for pharaohs, they reflect both engineering skill and spiritual belief. You might picture yourself standing at the base of one, looking up at its smooth, angled sides. Each stone block is large and heavy, yet fitted together with surprising precision. How were these structures built without modern machines? This question has quietly followed historians for generations. While there are still debates, most evidence suggests that thousands of workers, skilled laborious rather than slaves, were organized into teams. They used simple tools, ramps, and careful planning to move and place each stone. There is something almost meditative about imagining this process. Workers moving in rhythm, lifting, guiding, and placing stones under the steady sun. It was not a quick task. Some pyramids took decades to complete, requiring patience, coordination, and a strong sense of purpose. One interesting detail is how well-fed and organized these workers were. Archaeological discoveries suggest that they received regular meals, including bread and beer, and were housed in nearby communities. In a way, these construction sites were not chaotic, but structured environments where effort was shared and sustained. Beyond pyramids, temples were another important part of Egyptian architecture. If you were to walk into a temple, you might notice the contrast with the outside world. The air feels cooler, the light dimmer. Tall columns rise like stone forests, and walls are covered with carvings and inscriptions. Temples were not just places of worship, but also centers of activity. Priests performed rituals, offerings were made, and important events were recorded. The design of these spaces reflected a journey, from the bright, open entrance to the darker, more sacred inner chambers. It was almost like moving from the human world into the presence of the divine. You may also notice how precise and intentional the construction was. Buildings were often aligned with celestial events, such as the rising of the sun or the position of certain stars. This shows a connection between architecture and astronomy, where structures were not only built on the ardi, but also in relation to the sky. Another fascinating element is the use of materials. Most monumental structures were built from stone, chosen for its strength and durability. In contrast, everyday homes were made from mud bricks, which were easier to produce but less lasting. This difference quietly reflects how Egyptians viewed permanence, reserving their most durable materials for what they believed should last forever. There is also a sense of storytelling in these structures. Walls were not left empty. They were filled with carvings, symbols, and scenes from life and mythology. These images served as records, messages. One small but intriguing detail is how color was used. If you were to run your fingers lightly across many temples and tombs, you might feel brightly painted, left by someone who lived thousands of years ago, and gold small but powerful connection across time. Much of that color has faded, leaving behind stone surfaces. But if you imagine them as they once were, the ancient world becomes more vivid, less silent, more alive. Of course, not everything about these achievements is fully understood. There are still questions about construction methods, planning techniques, and the exact organization of labor. Historians continue to study and debate these topics, adding new insights while also accepting that some mysteries may remain. Yet, even without complete answers, the impact of these structures is clear. They stand as evidence of what a determined and organized society can achieve. Without modern technology, without machines, the people of ancient Egypt created monuments that have endured for thousands of years. As the sun begins to lower in the sky, you might imagine the long shadows cast by these structures stretching across the sand. There is a quiet stillness, a sense that these buildings are not just physical objects, but expressions of belief, effort, and time. Through architecture, the Egyptians left behind more than just buildings. They left a message, one of ambition, precision, and a desire to be remembered. And as you slowly turn away from these towering forms, another question begins to take shape. How did they gain the knowledge needed to build with such accuracy? What understanding of numbers, medicine, and time supported these achievements? In the next chapter, you will explore the scientific knowledge and innovations of ancient Egypt, uncovering how their understanding of the world helped shape both their daily lives and their lasting legacy. As you gently step away from the vast stone structures and into a quieter space of thought and discovery, you begin to notice another side of ancient Egypt, one that is less visible, but just as impressive. Beneath the pyramids and temples lies a world of knowledge, observation, and careful reasoning. This is where science begins to take shape, not in laboratories as you might imagine today, but in fields, workshops, and daily practice. If you imagine yourself watching an Egyptian farmer, you might not immediately think of science. Yet, as he measures the land after the Nile's flood, adjusting boundaries and planning where to plant crops, you begin to see it. Mathematics, in its early and practical form, was essential to Egyptian life. The yearly flooding of the Nile often erased field boundaries, requiring farmers to remeasure their land. This led to the development of basic geometry. They used ropes with knots to create straight lines and right angles, allowing them to divide land accurately. You could think of this as a quiet beginning of mathematical thinking, simple, practical, and deeply connected to survival. This knowledge extended into architecture as well. The precision seen in pyramids and temples was not accidental. It required an understanding of angles, alignment, and measurement. While their methods were different from modern formulas, the results speak clearly. Their calculations were effective. Another area where Egyptian knowledge quietly developed was medicine. If you imagine a healer at work, you might see someone observing symptoms, applying treatments, and learning from experience. Egyptian medical texts, such as the Edwin Smith Papyrus, show that they had a surprisingly practical approach to health. They understood that the body had systems and could be injured or affected in different ways. Treatments included herbal remedies, bandaging, and even simple surgical procedures. For example, they could treat wounds, set broken bones, and manage infections using natural substances like honey, which has antibacterial properties. At the same time, their medical practices were not entirely separate from belief. Illness was sometimes thought to be connected to spiritual causes, and treatments could include both physical remedies and prayers. This blending of science and belief reflects how knowledge was understood at the time, not divided into strict categories, but seen as part of a larger whole. You may find it interesting that much of what they knew came from observation. Without modern tools, Egyptians relied on watching patterns, how the body healed, how plants affected health, how the environment changed over time. This careful attention allowed them to build knowledge slowly, step by step. Astronomy was another important area of understanding. If you imagine looking up at the night sky in ancient Egypt, you would see a clear and vast expanse filled with stars. For the Egyptians, the sky was not only beautiful, but meaningful. They observed the movement of stars and used this knowledge to create a calendar. One of the most important events was the rising of the star Sirius, which signaled the coming of the Nile flood. This allowed them to predict seasonal changes and plan agricultural activities. Their calendar was based on a cycle of 365 days, divided into months and seasons. While not perfectly aligned with the solar year, it was remarkably accurate for its time. This system helped organize not only farming, but also religious festivals and daily life. Time itself was measured in simple ways. Sundials and water clocks were used to track the passing hours. You might imagine a shadow slowly moving across a marked surface, or water dripping steadily from one container to another. Quiet, steady indicators of time passing. One small but interesting detail is how practical their inventions were. Rather than creating tools for abstract purposes, most innovations were directly linked to daily needs. From measuring land to treating illness to tracking time, their knowledge was always connected to life as it was lived. There is also a sense of patience in how this knowledge developed. Without rapid communication or advanced tools, discoveries were made slowly. Knowledge was passed down, refined, and improved over generations. It was not about sudden breakthroughs, but about steady progress. Of course, there are still limits to what we know about Egyptian science. Some texts have been lost, and interpretations can vary. Historians continue to study surviving documents, artifacts, and structures to better understand how Egyptians thought and learned. Yet, even with these uncertainties, one thing is clear: ancient Egyptians were careful observers of the world around them. They used what they saw to solve problems, improve life, and build a civilization that could endure. As you reflect on this, you may begin to see science not just as modern knowledge, but as something that has always been part of human experience, a way of understanding, adapting, and creating. And as your attention slowly shifts, another question begins to form. How did they record all of this knowledge? How were ideas, events, and discoveries preserved and shared? In the next chapter, you will explore the writing system of ancient Egypt and the important role of scribes, uncovering how communication helped shape and preserve this remarkable civilization. As you move quietly from the world of science and observation, you begin to notice something equally powerful, yet more subtle: the ability to record and share ideas. In ancient Egypt, this ability took the form of a unique and beautiful writing system, one that allowed thoughts, stories, and knowledge to travel beyond a single moment in time. Imagine yourself holding a thin sheet of papyrus, smooth yet slightly textured beneath your fingers. In front of you, a scribe sits patiently, dipping a reed pen into ink, then carefully forming symbols with steady, practiced movements. Each mark is deliberate, each line meaningful. This is how ancient Egypt preserved its voice. The writing system they used is known today as hieroglyphs. At first glance, these symbols might look like simple drawings, images of animals, people, or everyday objects. But they are much more than decoration. Each symbol can represent a sound, a word, or even an idea. It is a system that blends art and language in a way that feels almost alive. You might notice that writing in hieroglyphs requires both skill and patience. It is not something everyone can do. In fact, only a small group of people were trained to read and write. These were the scribes. Becoming a scribe was a respected path, offering a life that was often more comfortable than physical labor. If you imagine the daily life of a scribe, it is quieter than that of a farmer or builder. Instead of working under the sun, the scribe spends time indoors or in shaded areas, recording information. This could include anything from tax records and trade agreements to religious texts and historical events. Their work ensured that important knowledge was not lost. There is something quietly powerful about this role. While others built structures or grew food, scribes preserved memory. Without them, much of what we know about ancient Egypt today might have disappeared. Hieroglyphs were often used for formal and important purposes, such as inscriptions on temple walls or in tombs. These carvings were designed to last, ensuring that names, achievements, and beliefs would endure over time. You might imagine running your hand across a carved surface, feeling the shapes that once carried meaning for someone long ago. For everyday use, Egyptians also developed simpler forms of writing, such as hieratic and later demotic scripts. These were faster to write and more practical for daily tasks. This shows how the writing system adapted to different needs, both artistic and functional. One interesting detail is how writing was closely connected to religion. Words were believed to hold power, especially when written. In tombs, written spells and texts were included to guide and protect the deceased in the afterlife. It was not just about recording information, but about shaping reality in a spiritual sense. You might find it fascinating that the ability to write could influence one's entire life. A young boy chosen to become a scribe would spend years learning symbols, practicing strokes, and memorizing texts. It was not an easy path, but it offered stability and respect. In a way, it was a quiet form of social mobility in a structured society. At the same time, communication was not limited to writing. Most people shared information through speech, stories told from one person to another, knowledge passed down through generations. These spoken traditions added warmth and flexibility, complementing the more permanent nature of written records. There is also a sense of beauty in how writing was presented. Hieroglyphs were often arranged in balanced and visually pleasing ways, almost like artwork. They could be written from left to right or right to left, depending on the direction the symbols faced. This attention to detail reflects how writing was not only functional, but also expressive. Of course, understanding these symbols today was not always possible. For many centuries, hieroglyphs remained a mystery. It was not until the discovery of the Rosetta Stone that scholars were able to begin decoding them. This breakthrough allowed modern historians to access the voices of ancient Egypt once again. Even now, some interpretations continue to be studied and refined. Language, especially one so old, carries layers of meaning that are not always easy to fully understand. This adds a quiet sense of mystery, reminding us that the past is never completely revealed. As you reflect on this, you begin to see how communication shaped ancient Egypt. Writing allowed them to organize society, preserve beliefs, and record achievements. It connected generations, linking the past with the future in a steady, continuous line. And yet, beyond these systems of writing and record-keeping, there were still many small and surprising details about daily life. Moments of creativity, beauty, and leisure that are often overlooked. In the next chapter, you will explore some of these interesting aspects, from personal care and fashion to entertainment and games, discovering a more playful and human side of ancient Egyptian life. As you move gently beyond systems of writing and formal knowledge, you begin to notice a softer, more personal side of ancient Egypt. This is the world of small details, the quiet habits, preferences, and moments of enjoyment that shape daily life in ways that are often overlooked. If you imagine yourself preparing for the day, one of the first things you might notice is the importance of appearance. In ancient Egypt, personal care was not simply about looking good, but also about feeling clean and protected in a challenging environment. The heat, dry air, and dust made hygiene essential. People bathed regularly, often using water from the Nile, and applied oils to their skin to prevent dryness. These oils, sometimes scented, added a subtle fragrance as well. You might picture someone carefully smoothing oil over their arms in the early morning light, a quiet ritual that brings comfort before the day begins. Cosmetics were also widely used, by both men and women. One of the most recognizable features is the dark eye makeup, often made from a substance called kohl. It was applied around the eyes, creating a bold, defined look. But this was not only for beauty, it also helped reduce glare from the sun and may have offered protection against eye infections. In a way, this practice shows how practicality and aesthetics were often combined. What looked decorative also served a purpose, quietly blending function with style. Clothing, too, reflected both the climate and cultural values. Linen garments were common, light and breathable, allowing people to stay cool in the heat. While most clothing was simple, jewelry added an extra layer of expression. Necklaces, bracelets, and rings were worn not just for decoration, but sometimes for symbolic or protective reasons. You might imagine the soft sound of beads or metal pieces gently moving as someone walks, a small detail, but one that adds life to the scene. Beyond appearance, daily life also included moments of relaxation and enjoyment. After long hours of work, people found ways to unwind. Music was an important part of this. Instruments such as harps, flutes, and drums were played during gatherings, creating gentle rhythms that filled the air. If you pause for a moment, you might almost hear it, a simple melody drifting through a courtyard as the sun begins to set. Games were another form of entertainment. One of the most popular was a board game known as Senet. The exact rules are not fully understood today, but it is believed to have had both recreational and symbolic meaning, possibly connected to the journey of the soul in the afterlife. You might imagine two players sitting across from each other, moving pieces carefully, their expressions calm but focused. It is a quiet moment, yet full of engagement. Storytelling also played an important role. Without widespread literacy, stories were shared aloud, passed from one generation to the next. These stories could be about gods, heroes, or everyday experiences. They carried lessons, values, and a sense of identity, connecting people through shared narratives. There is something timeless about this. Even today, stories continue to shape how people understand the world. Another interesting aspect of Egyptian life is how much variety existed within it. While we often think of ancient Egypt as a single, unified culture, daily experiences could differ depending on location, status, and occupation. A farmer's life in a rural village would feel very different from that of a noble in a city. Yet, despite these differences, there were shared practices and beliefs that created a sense of unity. Festivals, for example, brought people together in celebration. These events often included music, food, and religious rituals, offering a break from routine and a chance to connect with others. One small but intriguing detail is the use of wigs. In some cases, people shaved their heads and wore wigs instead, especially among the upper classes. This may have helped with cleanliness and comfort in the heat, while also allowing for different styles. It is a reminder that even in ancient times, fashion could be flexible and creative. At the same time, not everything was easy or comfortable. Life could be physically demanding, and access to resources was not always equal. However, within these challenges, people still found ways to create moments of beauty, rest, and enjoyment. As you reflect on this, you may begin to see ancient Egypt not just as a place of grand achievements, but as a world filled with small, human experiences. The application of makeup, the sound of music, the movement of game pieces, these are the details that bring the past closer, making it feel more real and relatable. There is also a quiet sense of continuity here. Despite the distance in time, many of these practices, caring for appearance, enjoying music, telling stories, are still part of life today. As the day gently comes to an end, you might imagine a group of people gathered together, sharing food, laughter, and quiet conversation. The air cools slightly, and the sky darkens. It is a simple moment, but one that carries a sense of connection and calm. And as this chapter softly closes, your journey through ancient Egypt begins to come together. The land, the people, their beliefs, their knowledge, and their daily lives, all forming a complete and meaningful picture. In the final chapter, you will reflect on everything you have explored, bringing these elements together to understand the lasting impact of ancient Egypt and why it continues to capture human curiosity even today. As your journey through ancient Egypt comes to an end, you begin to see the civilization not just as a distant chapter in history, but as a living story, one that continues to influence and inspire the world today. From the very beginning, ancient Egypt was shaped by its environment. The Nile River provided life, stability, and a rhythm that guided agriculture, society, and belief systems. This connection between nature and human life created a strong foundation for one of the most remarkable civilizations in history. Over time, the Egyptians developed complex systems of governance, religion, and knowledge. Their rulers, known as pharaohs, were not only political leaders but also spiritual figures, believed to maintain balance and harmony in the world. This idea of balance, often referred to as Ma'at, became a central principle that influenced many aspects of life. Religion played a powerful role, offering explanations for natural events and providing comfort through the belief in an afterlife. The careful preparation of tombs, the practice of mummification, and the construction of grand structures all reflected a deep desire to preserve both body and soul beyond death. At the same time, ancient Egypt was a center of learning and innovation. Writing systems like hieroglyphs allowed knowledge to be recorded and shared. Advances in medicine, mathematics, and engineering demonstrated a high level of understanding and creativity. The pyramids and temples that still stand today are not only architectural achievements, but also symbols of human ambition and skill. Yet, beyond these grand accomplishments, it is the daily lives of ordinary people that truly bring ancient Egypt to life. Farmers working along the Nile, artisans creating intricate objects, families sharing meals and stories. These moments remind us that this civilization was built by individuals with hopes, routines, and emotions not so different from our own. There is something deeply human in these details. The care for appearance, the enjoyment of music and games, the passing down of stories. These are elements that connect the past to the present in a meaningful way. As you reflect on everything you have explored, you may notice how many aspects of ancient Egypt continue to influence modern society. Concepts of architecture, systems of writing, and even ideas about health and spirituality can trace some of their roots back to this ancient civilization. More importantly, ancient Egypt shows what human beings are capable of when they work together with purpose and imagination. Despite the challenges of their environment, the Egyptians created a society that lasted for thousands of years, leaving behind a legacy that still fascinates people around the world. In a quiet sense, their story encourages us to think about our own place in history. What will future generations remember about us? What values and achievements will we leave behind? As the image of the Nile fades and the golden sands stretch into the distance, your journey gently comes to a close. But the story of ancient Egypt does not truly end. It continues in the monuments that remain, in the knowledge that has been passed down, and in the curiosity that still draws people to learn more. And perhaps, as you carry this understanding forward, you will find that the past is never really gone. It lives on in the ideas, traditions, and questions that continue to shape our world today.